Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all having a great start to the new week. I am your Al Sports Alpha, Leonardo Velasquez, and today we're going to be talking about the first week of the new ATP and WTA tennis season. A lot has happened this week. A lot of notable performances from a lot of top players. A lot of players that used to be really good now reestablishing themselves on their tours, and something to look forward to heading into the Australian Open. Our first topic today will be Aryna Sabalenka, as she won the Brisbane tournament for the second year in a row. And it's a 500 level tournament, which means she won her 500 points. And for the men's side, the ATP side, it was worth 250. So Sabalenka, she showed a lot of good performances this week. She had a good performance against Karolina Mukova, who she's lost. I'm pretty sure it was her last three matches against her, but beating her, I guarantee you, definitely reestablished a lot of confidence in her and her skill set. And then she ended up facing Marta Kostyuk in the final, who Marta, she had a very good run this week. She beat three top 10 players. She beat Jessica Pegula, Amanda Nisimova, and Mira Andreeva. And when it came down to one of the matches that really stood out to me was against Pegula. She didn't allow Pegula to really get into the match. She was out hitting her. She was hitting the ball extremely powerful, especially on second serve when Pegula was serving. And she would just return that ball so hard to the point where Pegula, it seemed like she didn't have enough time to establish or pick a good shot to return it back. And I think that was one of the main reasons why Marta had some good success leading up to the final. It's just the shot selection was on point. But when it came down to the final, Sabalenka, she served 67% from her first serve, which is, I think, something she wants to, improve a little bit, considering that the Australian Open is just coming up this weekend. If, she wants to have a good, successful Australian Open campaign, she would want that first serve percentage to be around 80% because first serve is extremely important. You get to hit the ball hard, you have an opportunity to throw the rhythm off your opponent. But if you give a lot of opportunities for your opponent to get at the second serve, it really gives them the chance to dictate the point, and you don't want that when you're serving. But she was flawless from second serve, 100%, so she did not lose a point from the second serve. And this is something I did notice in the match against Marta. It seemed like whenever Sabalenka had a second serve, Marta would try to return the ball extremely powerfully. And it seems like that kind of backfired as she could not get the shots in most of the time. And I think at the same time she wanted to beat Sabalenka at her own game, which is try to outpower her. And it seems like a tricky task because considering that Sabalenka has now had a lot of experience playing players who have almost an equal amount of power, like Elena Rybakina, Amanda Nisimova, especially Pegula when she's on her game and she's playing on a good hard court that she loves. And I think when it comes down to having good experience against players who hit the ball really hard, I think it helps you get used to other playing styles because sometimes playing against players who hit the ball very hard can be a little bit overwhelming. Overall, Sabalenka, she displayed some very good performances this week, and I think heading into the Australian Open, she's going to be feeling very confident. She's going to be looking to reclaim that title as she won it in 2023 and 2024. She came up short last year to Madison Keys in the final, but she's played in three consecutive finals in Australia and Melbourne, so I can expect her to really make it all the way to the final. I do think she's going to win it, but I think now it's all about just wondering who can challenge her for that title and make it there. I would still say I think Rybakina, even though Rybakina struggled a little bit this week to really stay in good rhythm. It seemed like she was sometimes a little bit distracted after a few mistakes, and that would throw off her performance. Anisimova, same thing, but it just seems like the off-season rust wearing off a little bit. Pagula did show some resilience leading up to the semifinals. It seems like she may have been dealing with an injury. We don't know, but we can almost guarantee that she might be also a top player in Australia. Obviously, doing some research in the past, Pagula has not had some deep runs in Australia, so we'll see if she can change that this year. That's something to really keep an eye on. But overall, with the current state of how players played this week, it's safe to say that I think Sabalenka should be the favorite to win the Australian Open. But, this is sports, anything can change. But for now, those are our main takeaways for that WTA match and WTA side. And moving on to the next Next player, we got Daniil Medvedev. And Medvedev, he showed a lot of resilience this week. He showed that nostalgic playing style that we were so used to seeing. He was serving very well. He was very good at the net. He was going toe to toe with a lot of good players, and also he had a good performance and a good comeback against Kamil Majarek in the quarterfinals after losing the first set tiebreak. And I think that was a very good test for Medvedev, considering that there were a lot of times last season where he would lose the first set and then win the second set and then unfortunately lose the third. So it seems like coming back from a deficit and winning is a good mental booster for him. And also, similar thing in the Grand Slams where he would go down 2 sets to love, he would come back and tie it, send it to a fifth set, and next thing you know, he would still come up short. So I think this is a positive sign for Medvedev of heading into the Australian Open. Medvedev, he faced Brandon Nakashima in the final, and Brandon Nakashima had a very good week too. I think the most notable win for him was beating Alejandro Davidovich Fokina in the first round. Considering that Davidovich Fokina has shown a lot of good playing style on hard court, that win came as a surprise to me personally. But I think one of the reasons why Brandon was able to beat Davidovich Fokina was because of his powerful first serve and also his powerful hitting from the baseline, and that really disrupted Davidovich Fokina's rhythm. It seemed like he had trouble timing his shots, especially with the shot selection, and it was an impressive win from Brandon. He did not lose a set until the final, and I think walking away from this tournament, he should go away with his head held up high. He put on an amazing performance all week, and I think heading into the Australian Open, he's definitely a player that you may not want to face in the first or second round because he can definitely be a threat to you. I remember a notable match that I saw in Nakashima. He had a battle with Lorenzo Musetti. I'm pretty sure it was in the first or second round in the 2024 U.S. Open. He ended up taking the win against Musetti, and I think one of the main reasons why he was able to beat Musetti in that match was because of his powerful hitting style. So when it comes down to players like that, I think when we saw Medvedev go up against Kamil Majarek in the quarterfinals, I expected the match to be a little bit difficult considering that Medvedev has never played Majarek before. So usually when that happens, the first set is usually you're trying to figure out your opponent, see what they're doing well, and see what you can do against them to kind of throw off their rhythm. And we saw that, and he really did well by coming back from that first set deficit and overall just winning the title. I think that's impressive for Medvedev to start off the year, heading into the Australian Open with some confidence. And also, Medvedev has played in 2 Australian Open finals before. He played in the 2022 final against Nadal, and he played in the 2024 final against Sinner. He lost both of them, but he has that experience of making it deep in Australia. So that is something to look on to see if he can make it far this year and turn his career around and reassert himself into that title picture of being one of those leading contenders. A close friend of mine who I talk about tennis with all the time, he tells me he believes that Medvedev is back. I want to say Medvedev is back. I love Medvedev. He's a great player, very fun to watch, especially on hard courts. But I'm not convinced yet. Even though he won this title, I want to see him make a good run at a Grand Slam, considering that you have to win 3 sets. The matches are longer, they're grueling, and that's something I just want to see. And until that happens, if he can make at least like a quarterfinal, round of 16, that's when I'll say, yeah, he's definitely back and he's definitely, one of those leading contenders. Because before we've seen him, compete, go toe to toe with Sinner, with Novak, with Zverev, and even with Alcaraz. So this is something to really keep an eye on, something to look forward to, because I think this season we'll see a lot of players that were dominant in the past few years, and then now this year is kind of like a resurgent year for them. And that's actually similar moving on to our next player, Belinda Bencic. Belinda Bencic, she's had an amazing start to the year. She had 2 notable wins against Iga Swiatek and Jasmine Paolini. She's 5-0 now to start off the season. She almost helped Switzerland win the United Cup. Unfortunately, it wasn't her fault. She did win her match, but then Herkaz was able to win his match against Stan Wawrinka, and then it went to a third match tiebreak to see who would win the United Cup, and then it saw Poland beating Switzerland to win the cup, but still Belinda Bencic won all of her matches at the United Cup, and I think her most impressive win was against Iga, considering that she has a losing record against Iga. And the way this match transpired, she lost the first set. She was able to stay composed and stay focused and just stick to her game plan by serving well, by making Iga move around, disrupting her rhythm. And it saw her getting the win in 3 sets. And I think when you get tough wins like that in 3 sets, it develops some good confidence, especially at the beginning of the season with the Australian Open on the horizon. And overall, Belinda Bencic, she's not a newcomer. She's been on tour for a lot of years now. Obviously, she took some time off and she came back at the beginning of last year after having a baby. So I think now, you know, showing that she can go toe to toe with a top contender like Iga Swiatek, I think that's something to look out for at the Australian Open. Because a lot of players they might be on the lookout for her. You may not want to see her in your draw because she can definitely be a huge threat, and you never know, she could be a leading contender now too because she has that experience and now beating Iga. I know it's just one match, but we'll see if she can carry on that consistency heading into the Australian Open. And some other notable wins and other notable players. Alina Svitolina, she won Auckland 250, WTA Auckland 250. She was the number one seed. And just looking at this tournament and the draw, I expected her to win this. There were a lot of young players in that tournament, Eva Jovic and Alexandra Yala, who are two young women on tour who are making a name for themselves. They've won a lot of impressive matches in the last few months towards the end of the 2025 season. But Yala, she really made a statement at the beginning of last season during March in Miami when she was putting on amazing performances. She made a deep run at the Miami Open. And overall, I think these are two players that we will be talking about in the future. They're very energetic, they have good shot selections, and they have good speed and variety. And it seems like they're developing good mental fortitude. And I think, especially now with Jovic, she has won a title before. I think that's building confidence at such a young age to the point that when a few years go by and you get more experience on tour, she's definitely someone that will be eventually, who knows, a leading contender for a Grand Slam. Considering that both of them are still young, they're still climbing their way up the rankings, but those are two players to keep an eye on for the foreseeable future for sure. Another notable match was the Hong Kong final between Bublik and Lorenzo Musetti. Now, my main takeaway from this match was one, Bublik is still showing that he can win titles, especially at 250. Last year he was winning some 250s. He won the Halle Germany grass tournament, which was 500. And he was winning a few titles last season, and then it really revived his career, considering that at one point he said he was planning on just stepping away from tennis and retiring for good. But to see him, play well last year and carry that positive energy to start off this new season and win a title, you never know. He can maybe be a good player in the Australian Open as well. And as for Lorenzo Musetti, he's a great player, but now he's 0-7 in finals. So that's a little bit alarming considering that he has a good skill set, he has variety, he has good speed, he can move around the court very well, he has developed a powerful first serve. And overall, I think that if he wants to really break through and go toe to toe with top players, he really needs to try to win a title because that just can unlock a new mental side of the game for you. It can relieve us a lot of pressure, and overall, it can just be a good step in the right direction in the future. But overall, with the Australian Open coming up, there's a lot of exciting things to look out for. Also, Stefanos Tsitsipas, he showed a lot of resilience in his United Cup matches. As similar to Medvedev's case, he had a struggling 2025 campaign, but he was able to get a notable win over Taylor Fritz. Obviously, Taylor Fritz was dealing with a knee injury, but still picking up a win over a top 10 opponent really can help boost your confidence. And Stefanos Tsitsipas has had experiences of playing in Grand Slam finals. He's also played in the Australian Open final in 2023, where he came up short against Novak Djokovic. But now, winning matches on the singles side because he was playing doubles at the United Cup representing his nation Greece, but winning his singles matches, I think this can develop some good confidence for him heading into the Australian Open. So maybe we'll see Medvedev and Stefanos Tsitsipas make some good runs, hopefully, because these are players that we got used to seeing being dominant and being consistent on tour for a very long time, for a few years. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. And with the Australian Open now coming up in just a few days. It starts on the 18th. We are currently just a few days out, less than a week. A lot of exciting things. I think we will have a mix of players that were very good a few years ago and now they're reestablishing themselves into that mix, and then players that we have seen become so consistent on tour for the last 2 or 3 years that we usually expect them to win. But as I made my prediction in the last video when I was talking about the ATP and WTA Tour for the 2026 season, I believe that Sabalenka will win the Australian Open, and I believe that Sinner will face Novak Djokovic in the final, and Sinner will win. But I know a lot of people want to see Novak get that coveted 25th Grand Slam, set the all-time record for both men and women to be the player with the most Grand Slams in history. And considering that Novak had a very, very good run in Australia last year before he sustained an injury against Carlos Alcaraz in the quarterfinals, I think we can expect him to really try to push himself to the limit and try to go all out in Australia, considering that he's had so much success there before in his career and he's won so many titles there. So we can definitely expect him to make at least semifinals or finals. I still believe that he will make the finals only because I think Alcaraz, considering that he's never made it past the quarterfinals at the Australian Open, that kind of gives a good window for Novak to take that opportunity to play in another final and possibly give himself a chance to win the 25th Grand Slam. But Sinner, he's been dominant. He's won the Australian Open the last 2 years, so we can almost expect that he's going to take this title. But it's sports. You never know what can happen. It's going to be an exciting tournament, and I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, I hope you guys have had a good start to the week. We're going to be releasing new videos tomorrow talking about college basketball and the NBA with some recent stories breaking out. And also, we will be releasing our reaction to the NFL and college football playoffs with the last NFL wildcard game taking place tonight between the Steelers and the Texans. So, tomorrow we will talk about our reactions and predictions for the next round, considering that there were so many amazing moments that transpired over the weekend in the last few days with all these amazing games. But in the meantime, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you haven't yet, please like, subscribe. I'll see you on the next one. Take it easy.